Okay, you're not gonna believe this. A single sentence, just one sentence out of Washington, has literally sent shockwaves through the entire crypto world, and it all comes down to one absolutely mind-blowing number. Yeah, you're seeing that right. $15 billion. That is the insane value of the Bitcoin the US government is sitting on right now. You heard me. They are officially one of the biggest Bitcoin whales on the entire planet. But the real story here, the part that's causing all the drama, isn't just how much they're holding, it's the insane story of how they got their hands on it in the first place. Because get this, that massive $15 billion hoard, well, it didn't start that way. It started as just $500 million in seized assets from criminals. We're talking about an unrealized profit in the billions. And that, my friends, is why this whole thing has just exploded into a political firestorm. All right, Section 1, Washington's crypto bombshell. So, let's break down exactly what went down. It all started in this super tense congressional hearing that basically put the entire crypto market on high alert. So, picture this. You've got Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in the hot seat. And grilling him is none other than Representative Brad Sherman, a guy who is, let's just say, not a fan of crypto. He's probably one of its biggest critics in DC. So yeah, you could cut the tension in that room with a knife. And then, bam, Sherman drops the question that everyone was waiting for. He looks the Treasury Secretary dead in the eye and asks, does the Treasury Department have the authority to bail out Bitcoin? He's basically asking, hey, if crypto crashes and burns, is the US government going to step in and save it? Is there a safety net? The whole market held its breath. And the secretary's answer? It was fast. It was blunt. No hesitation whatsoever. I do not have the authority to do that. Just like that, in 8 simple words, he drew a massive line in the sand. This was it. A firm government policy with huge, huge implications for every single person invested in crypto. Okay, Section 2, the $15 billion Bitcoin stash. So, what does this new policy actually mean for that giant pile of government Bitcoin? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the official rules here. First off, you gotta understand this isn't just some Bitcoin sitting in a forgotten wallet. Oh no, this is the official Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. It was created by an executive order way back in March 2025. And the whole idea was to treat this stuff like a national asset, just like the country's gold reserves or its emergency oil supply. So what's the game plan for this massive reserve? It's actually super simple. Just hold it. Don't touch it. Don't interfere with the market. That means no buying and, at least for now, no selling. It's a totally hands-off strategy. So that raises a pretty big question, right? How on earth can this giant stash get any bigger? Well, the executive order, the rule book for this whole thing is crystal clear. There are only 2 ways the government can stack more Bitcoin. First, the same way they got it before, through asset forfeiture, seizing it from criminals. And second, through this thing called a budget-neutral strategy. And that's where things get really interesting. Okay, let's zoom in on this budget-neutral thing because this is the detail that changes everything. What it means is that the US government will not be using your taxpayer dollars to go on Coinbase and buy up Bitcoin. That whole dream of Uncle Sam market buying BTC, it's dead. And that was a huge letdown for a lot of people. Instead, the only way they can get more is to convert other assets they already own. So they could, say, sell some of their gold or tap into their oil reserves and then use that money to buy Bitcoin. See the difference? They're not printing new money to buy crypto. They're just shuffling their existing assets around. It's a massive distinction. All right, Section 3, market impact, the bull versus the bear. So as you can probably guess, the market is totally split on this. People are looking at the exact same news and coming to 2 completely different conclusions about what happens next. So let's break down this tug of war. First, you've got the bulls. Their argument is pretty simple and pretty powerful. They're saying, hey, the US government is now one of the biggest hodlers in the world. This makes Bitcoin a legit reserve asset, just like gold. And since we know they're not going to suddenly dump all $15 billion on the market, that fear is gone. It creates this kind of psychological price floor. The biggest potential seller is officially out of the game. But then you've got the bears, and they're looking at this and saying, whoa, hold on. They're pointing out that the government just promised it will not be a buyer of last resort. They're not going to swoop in and save the day. That massive source of potential demand that everyone was dreaming about, poof, it's gone. So you can see how this creates this crazy psychological split for investors, right? On one hand, you've got this new feeling of certainty. We finally know the rules of the game. But on the other hand, there's this nagging feeling of a huge missed opportunity. That dream of the US government becoming a massive Bitcoin buyer is officially dead, at least for now. Okay, last section. What happens next? So, with this new bombshell policy in place, what's the bottom line? What's the one thing you really need to remember from all of this? So let's just cut through the noise and get right to it. Here's your key takeaway. The US government is officially on the sidelines. They have a strict hands-off policy. What does that mean for you? It means they are not going to ride in and save the market if things go south. But, and this is a big but, it also means they're not going to trigger a crash by selling their huge stash. So what we're left with is certainty. For better or for worse, we know where they stand. And in a market as crazy as crypto, just knowing the rules can be a really big deal. And that just leaves us with one final massive question. Now that the biggest economic power in the world has officially decided to sit on the bench, who's going to step up and make the next big play? Will it be another country? Maybe a giant Wall Street firm? Or is the future of crypto right back where it all began? In the hands of everyday people like you and me?